What's the most important issue for your campaign?
Well, for me, it's in some ways just a sense of community, right? And I believe in making sure that Texans can govern themselves. I think we're doing a pretty darn good job of it, and we don't need Washington telling us what to do. And so when I go to D.C., I always think through that lens. What can we do to keep Washington from interfering with our ability to take care of our veterans in our own communities, making sure we get our health care prices down, securing our border, and making sure our communities are safe. And so that's for me the thing that arches everything that I'm focused on. And importantly, things like spending and trying to keep the federal government from interfering with Texas. I think community is how you solve problems, right? You help the person down the street, look at your own families, work through churches, figure out how to solve the homeless problem here in Austin. We need to do. But we don't need Washington telling us how to do that when Texas is, frankly, the beacon of hope for the world. There's 1,000 people a day moving to Texas for a reason, a lot of them to Central Texas, because of the greatness and the prosperity that this state offers.
What have you learned in Congress that you hope to change?
Well, first of all, it's just terribly broken from the standpoint of working like a normal business or a family operates. So, for example, some of my Democratic colleagues and I have been talking recently. We did a bipartisan letter about making sure our authorizations of force for our men and women in uniform are re-upped. We've got people who are enlisting who weren't alive when we passed the old authorization of force. We had a great group trying to work on that together, and we're making some progress. But we also started talking about spending. You have to sit down at your table at home. This studio, this network has to sit down. Any business has to sit down and figure out how to balance the budget. We never do that. We sit down and we just pick our corners, throw stuff against the wall, and then we've got $23.2 trillion of debt, $110 million of debt an hour. We should sit down at the table and have to reach conclusions, make tough decisions, because iron sharpens iron. It makes us better as a country if we have to sit down and make the tough decisions. At home, do I want a new loaded Suburban? I'd love one. I can't afford it. Would I like to take a nice vacation? I can't. I got to choose, what are we doing for food? The government never does that, and we need to.
How important is border security to you, and do you think the parties will come together on something that works for everyone?
Well, I certainly think we can. I mean, like I said, we had a bipartisan op-ed and some bipartisan action and voted on a bipartisan basis. I was one of 11 Republicans to vote with Democrats on, for example, ending the 2002 authorization of force in Iraq. On the border, my friend Henry Cuellar and I joined a bill that I introduced last week to make sure that we clear the Carrizo Cane and create roads where our Border Patrol agents can actually navigate the border for border security. Because right now, Laredo, for example, which is 100 miles away from the district I represent, from Rial County and Leakey, of the 70 miles along the Laredo sector, 2 miles are navigable by our Border Patrol along the river. They can't do their job. There's warring factions. Cartels have operational control of our border. There is bipartisan desire to do that. The problem is that bipartisanship stops when Nancy Pelosi has a stranglehold on the party. When Nancy Pelosi tears up a speech sitting in front of the State of the Union, when they sit on their hands when the American president is talking about American greatness. So I think we need individuals to work together, and I was happy to work with Henry, who's a great man, and happy to work with him to do things like that.
Families, how important are families to you and family legislation?
Look, families are what build and bind our communities together, and I think we've got to have legislation that frees up families to do that. Right now, healthcare and education are consuming more and more and more of our family budgets. We've got to stop that. We can't have these runaway prices. Guess which areas of our lives are most regulated in the world? Healthcare, education. We've had a 3,000% increase in bureaucrats in my lifetime compared to a 100% increase in doctors in healthcare. We've got to end that. No longer should people's budgets being ravaged by healthcare costs. We can drive healthcare prices down. I've introduced legislation, the Personalized Care Act, along with Senator Cruz in the Senate. I did it in the House to allow you to put more money in savings accounts so you can go to the doctor of your choice without insurance companies telling you what to do with your health care. Let's fix that for the American family.
Going into the voting booth, what should people know about you?
I mean, first and foremost is that I love Texas. My great-great-grandfather was a Texas Ranger in Hays, Blanco, and Travis counties in the 1870s. My family's been here since the 1850s. My grandmom was a single mom in West Texas, raising my polio-stricken father. My mom and dad married in Austin in 1968. I love this state. I've been working on behalf of this state, whether it was as a lawyer, federal prosecutor, or working for both Senators Cornyn and Cruz, Governor Perry. And now as a congressman, I'm trying to represent this district, have been doing so for the last year the best I know how, and most importantly, that I will do what I say. You don't always have to agree with it, but you know when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to go do it. And that's the biggest thing that I'm proud of is when I go around the district, people stop me, both sides of the aisle, by the way, and they say, thank you for doing what you said you would do.
Great. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thank you.